In 2024, it still breaks my heart that we are having to push forward so harshly still to have women included properly in the workplace and gender equality be made a priority and diversity become a topic that's not just, a tick box exercise. What can organisations do to be better at embracing these things this year?
First and foremost, you have to make sure your own house is in order. I always tell people that. They're sort of always looking outside. Sometimes we said that in the nonprofit world, philanthropic world, where they feel good about what they do already, and then they're critiquing others. But I say, is your own house in order? Be it if you're a corporation, be it if you're a school board, a PTA, you name it, there's the opportunity to first look within and see if I am promoting these themes of diversity, equity, and inclusion, am I living them in my own life? As you may know, I gave a TED Talk a decade ago. I cannot believe it was that long ago, but it was. And what is disappointing is the subject matter is even more important. I gave a TED Talk on race, and I talked about, being color brave instead of being color blind, where people brag about the fact that they don't see color. And I say, in doing that, they're missing the absence of color around them or gender in that situation. So I'm asking people to personally commit to reaching out to someone who doesn't look like them, who doesn't act like them, who doesn't think like them, who doesn't come from where they come from, making a concerted effort to do that on a regular basis so you can bring those diverse viewpoints into your life to make you a more complete human. I think to the extent we have more diversity, equity, inclusion in our world, we'd have a safer, better world. We'd be more tolerant of each other and our differences. We would not have wars. We would not have the things that we have that debilitate societies, as we all know, and are so heartbreaking on so many levels. And so I do think this is not just something that is good for the individual, it's good for the whole.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I think that it also goes back to, we actually can't just expect people to do this. I think we have to raise the bar ourselves and come and, speak up when we see things that are happening that we know shouldn't be happening. And I think for a long time, they've just been swept under the rug, or there's this idea, well, that's the way it's always been done. And I think that we as women need to step up and challenge that norm and challenge each other to do better and be better and champion one another. What have you found effective throughout your career when it comes to, overcoming and challenging these gender-related, issues that pop up? Because you're a woman in business. At the end of the day, there are surely times that have popped up where people just assume, well, you're a female, what would you know? And you just go, a lot more than you. So how do we actually champion ourselves, and how have you done that personally in challenging circumstances?
So clearly there are a lot of challenging circumstances. A few years ago, early in my career, I should say, I was lamenting to someone about some of the challenges of diversity and gender in corporate America. And they said, Mellody, how long have you been Black? How long have you been a woman? Just sort of making the point that that is what it is. And it's not that we accept it, but we understand that will be there. And then our job is to overcome it, right? And I think that there are a lot of dimensions to that overcoming. So one is, I think as women, we have to unconditionally support each other. I think it's so easy for us to chip away at our support for each other. And we are imperfect. We know that, but we have to be there for each other. And I think that that is something that I see clearer and clearer every single day. I'm on the side of the woman. And I really do feel that that's very important, as well as the other, whatever that other might be in our society, wherever we are. Because I've seen firsthand and lived firsthand being that person and know what it feels like. I think the other thing is just to really understand that there's a great opportunity. Instead of seeing this for the negative, let's see it for the positive. Let's look at how we as individuals can raise up our own environments and ultimately our world, and do it in a way that is bold and audacious, believing that we can be the ones to affect change. That was Rosa Parks not sitting down on the bus. Like, who knew she would change so much for Black people in America? So understanding that everyone has power and influence. Rosa Parks was riding a bus and changed things. And it's not about, are you senior in the corporation, or do you have a lot of money, or what is your power and influence? Just own whatever you have and see how you can use and work and make that affect change.
I feel like you are so correct. It's those little things that compound over time. Like, she didn't know what she was doing in that moment would create an entire movement, but it did. And I guess that's what it goes back to, right? This concept of having grit and going, no, I'm not going to let this one walk all over me. I'm going to get back up and stand up for what I believe in, whether that is for me personally or that is for my community of women and people who need the support. I feel like the quote, "a rising tide lifts all ships," just keeps coming into my head. And I go, if it is good for you and one woman starts investing, it's going to impact impact the world in such a beautiful way that lifts other women to feel like they might have the confidence to even just have a look or have a try, or, put their hat in the ring for the first time. Wealth it doesn't have to be intergenerational. You can create your own wealth. And there's this idea that I'm so passionate about creating a better world for the women that are going to come after me and my family. And you've obviously got children, you've got a daughter, and I feel like that might have sparked a new passion in you to go, no, I do want the world to be an even better place for her, right? So what can we do when it comes to empowering women economically so that women's rights and gender equality aren't the things we're talking about when it comes to International Women's Day? We're actually celebrating ourselves. Like, what can we do today that empowers the women of tomorrow?
So I'm going to use my own child right now as a good example, because Everest is 10 years old. So I've decided this was the year that I'm really leaning in and teaching her about money. And again, in that too small to fail mindset, I'm starting really small. So something as simple as what my mother did for me. My mother had me pay for things. So when we would go to a store, she would give me the money to give to the person across the counter. Now, of course, we mostly use credit cards, but I give my daughter the credit card and I say, you need to pay. She's got to put it in the machine. She's got to type in the yes, all of those things. But it's also for her to understand what things cost. This is very, very basic. So 10-year-olds old, does your 10-year-old child know what a box of cereal costs, their favorite box of cereal? We were at McDonald's recently and we were in the drive-thru and she said, "What is tax?" I explained taxes to her in the car ride, not just the tax on the food, but then I went and explained to her taxes on your income and your paycheck and explained how it worked. And it was literally one of these things, breaking it down for her so that she could understand and explaining where the taxes in America go. All of those things become profound. Her favorite store right now is Sephora. And she just goes in a store. She's 10 years old. She just looks at the boxes. She's not wearing makeup, but she loves skincare and all these things. I mean, the 10-year-old today is a different child. But she looks at these boxes and I tell her, look at the price on the shelf. And she'll say things like, wow, that's really expensive, because now she has some basis for understanding. And all of these things become, very, very important in time in terms of economic empowerment. I'll give you one last example. She got because everyone knows she loves Sephora gift cards for the holidays. And so she forgot the gift cards the last couple times that we went. And I said, well, you owe me that money. And she was like, what? So upset when she realized she had to pay me back. I said, you have to give me one of those gift cards. And I think had she really it had been her own money, she may have even pulled back a little bit. But now she has to give me one of the gift cards to pay me back, and she's pained over it. And so these are the kind of things I think when you talk about economic empowerment, we get so lofty in our idea of what it could be. Let's just bring it down. And using a 10-year-old psychology is not the worst thing. When I was very young working at Ariel, I'll stop with this one. I used to think about everything I bought in terms of how many days it took me to work to get it. And it was a really powerful way of managing my money. So if I wanted to go on a vacation and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is like a month of work. Sometimes it wasn't worth it. Think about when you're young, all the weddings you get invited to that are all over the place. Certain things, a sofa, a bed. I'm like, how long does it take? And it made me value my time. I think people overvalue money and they undervalue time. Once your time becomes clear to you in terms of what are you spending to do that, in terms of your hard-earned work, it really does make things like, no way, I'm not doing it, versus be willing to put yourself out there and to stretch and do something.
You are so right. I feel like her being 10 and learning about financial literacy now, especially in the home, like I have such a belief that financial literacy begins at home. And we know that research tells us that your money story and those ingrained beliefs and values, they start at the age of 7. I feel like so many times, lots of us miss out on that. And I'm so grateful that your daughter is going to have that, because I used to do the same thing as you. I used to break it down, but by the hour, and go, oh my gosh, I'm not going out for lunch at work because that's a whole other hour. Like, are you joking? And so for me, that really resonates. But I think that if we have been deprived of the financial literacy that I believe every woman deserves, that doesn't mean we can't change it. Like, today is not too late.
Right.
Like, you work in
Right.
investment. We've heard this before. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, right? But the second best time is today. And I think that right now, if you haven't thought about your financial literacy and, maybe you don't have the cash to start investing, we can educate ourselves. There are so many free resources and things that we can lean on. We can get into this concept of reading content and connecting with our mentors, right? Like, you brought that up before. And I just think the whole power of this conversation goes back to what we were talking about at the start. One, how important our money story is, but two, from little things, big things really do grow. And I feel like you haven't just said that, you've really embraced that, and you've become that, and you've become this empowering figure that we can look at and go, wow, she really did what she said she was going to do.
You've said it perfectly, because I always say it's not too early and it's not too late. Never. It's never too early to start. It's never too late to start. And the other thing, my money mentor has been not only John Rogers, who founded Ariel, who's a great investor, but Warren Buffett. Reading about Warren Buffett, my favorite money book of all times is a book called Warren Buffett, The Making of an American Capitalist. And it talks about how he thinks about money and investing. And there's just so many real life, plain and simple lessons there that is not about some esoteric math concept or financial concept, but really simple, plain speak. He often says, people say, he's looking for a needle in a haystack. He says, no, I just look for haystacks. He looks for the obvious to invest in. So those are the kinds of things that really come through in the book. You don't have to reinvent the wheel here in order to be financially secure.
I love that book, and I feel like we could go on and on about book club, but I'll wrap it up. I won't take up any more of your time, but I think this concept of having the power to change your money story, having the power to lift other women up, and knowing that by you doing one thing, it can start a chain reaction is just so beautiful. But also it is so important for us, especially today, to just reflect on the small things that we can do that are going to change the world to be a greater place. And you are the perfect person to have had this conversation with. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for all that you're doing. And again, I'm so excited for you and what is to come with your baby. So congratulations.
Thank you.